Alright, this is a chain bind-off, which is often the only bind-off method that people know. I've been working in stockinette stitch, and the next row in my pattern would be a knit row, so I'm going to bind off knitwise, but if this was a purl row, I'd bind off purlwise. If it was a knit purl pattern, I would bind off according to the pattern as I would knit it on the next row. So I'm going to start by knitting 2 stitches. Now, the key to this is we want these stitches to be really big and loose, about twice as big as your normal stitches. So you want to wrap your yarn a little looser and then be careful you don't yank on it as you do the next one. So you can see the difference in the size of the stitches on this needle are quite a bit bigger than the ones here. Once you have 2 stitches on your right hand needle, you're going to go over with your left hand needle, pick up the farther one and lift it up and over the other one off the end of the needle. And since this other stitch has to get close to the end of your needle, I usually just extend my fingertip and hold on to it so it feels much more safe. And then I have 1 loop remaining on my right needle, so I'm going to knit just 1 more stitch, again big and nice and loose, and then reach over. It's like this one leapfrogs over the other one and off the needle. So keeping it loose and following the knit purl patterns are 2 really important tips that people don't always realize. If you knit this at the same tension as your regular stitches, or tighter because you're nervous or hurrying to finish, then you're going to end up with an edge that doesn't have much stretch. So you want to be careful that you keep them really nice and loose and follow your stitch pattern. Now the other thing that is sometimes an issue with this cast on is sometimes it gets a funny little bump at the very top corner. So when you're at the point where you have just 1 stitch remaining on each of your needles, the stitch on your left needle, you're going to move that over to your right needle just for a minute. And then with your left needle, you're going to pick up the back part of this stitch. So here's the front part. I'm going to go into the back part and scoop that up. And then I'm going to return the stitch that was on my left needle that I moved over to my right needle. I'll return that here. So now I've got 2 strands, not exactly 2 stitches, but 2 strands of yarn. And then I'm going to knit those together. And then to finish this, I'm going to do my leapfrog action that I normally do and cut the yarn a couple inches away, enough to weave in my tail. And then the cut end of the yarn is going to go into this final loop to finish it. And I like to go this direction, but I don't think it matters too much. And when you pull, you just want to pull a little gently. But that keeps you from having a little bit that sticks out here at the very end. And you can see it's a nice looking bind off because I did it loose. I still have a pretty good amount of stretch. But if you really need a very stretchy edge, check out my other videos. The lace bind off is an exceptionally stretchy edge, and the back stitch bind off is another great one if you need a whole lot of stretch. But this is a pretty good all-around cast on you can use for a lot of projects, especially if you keep it nice and loose.